Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3, Immortal Empires, and what Creative Assembly is going to add in patch 5.2 according to their dev blog. From Michael Hasty, the design director on Total War Warhammer 3, and the namesake for the final boss of the Vampire Coast DLC. So you have all these pirates in the Vampire Coast, and the final one is Hasty. Yeah. Well, I guess it makes sense considering the things he's working on. He mentions what he and Rich did with the Moon Cycle mechanic for the Beastman as kind of like a very important addition to the game because it set the stage for what was to come going forward. And it's kind of worth remembering that CA used to be kind of limited in the things they would do with DLC, with content, and now they're adding DLC type content, or certainly some features that you would only see in DLC these days, in a patch. And 5.2, based on what I know, is going to be fairly significant. Now, keep in mind, I didn't know any details. All I was told, and what other people were told, what CA themselves had stated publicly, is that it was going to be very significant on this. They make a point about updates going forward, and very important is that with these additions, which they don't call DLC level additions, though certainly some of the things look like that. They have people dedicated to these updates. There is a team working on campaign content now outside of DLC that didn't exist before, and what they're going to do is add content in the game for races and types of content they wouldn't do with DLC going forward, because there's only so much DLC that's going to come out going forward for Warhammer 3. So they're going to talk about some of these updates. What we're going to get, the main pieces of content and other smaller changes in addition, it has 4 major components. The Deeps for the Dwarves, Chaos Cult rework, new small global feature, unusual location, which seems like it's going to be a work in progress that they're going to work for various patches, and update to Cafe's Ivory Road feature. Now, what they're mentioning with a Cafean caravan system is that it's going to be more in line with the Chaos Dwarf convoy feature, which is very, very nice because certainly the Chaos Dwarfs have a much better convoy system than what Cafe does. So make Cafe more interesting to play, though. I'll say as much, I do think Cafe does need a DLC, because right now they are certainly a strong race, but they're kind of dull to play in a lot of ways. Like, strong, capable, does not make necessarily for an interesting campaign, as it were. We can look at Warriors of Chaos, we can look at Wood Elves as other examples. And the icons are bright pink right now as they're a work in progress, so it's super obvious that it still needs to be worked on. I imagine this is for themselves as developers. It's something I've heard developers do for many years. Like, Warcraft 3 did have this. Like, if you remember, for anyone who played Warcraft 3, there is an icon over there, and it's even in the credits, with someone's face on it, and that just indicated, yeah, we do need to actually work on this, and we need to implement it. So anyway, the Dwarves are going to get access to the Deeps mechanic. The intent behind this is to reward people who are interested in playing the Dwarves in a more defensive playstyle. I have to say this, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, because there are people complaining about this, have complained ever since, like, Forensic K came out. Oh, Dwarves are not supposed to be expansionist. That's a discussion in its own right, but here's the thing about that. One, the game favors an expansionist mindset. Even if you don't necessarily control territory, the game is not rewarding you necessarily for controlling a large swath of territory. The game is rewarding you because post-battle loot, trading regions, going out there and doing things. It's kind of worth mentioning this about the Dwarves in the lore as well. The Dwarves are not passive in the lore as well. There have many reasons why they don't go out there and do a lot more than they're doing right now, or at least what they were doing before the end times, but they do try and be active. Like, the idea that the Dwarves are just sitting in their mountains and not doing anything, that is hilarious. The Dwarves do have moments when, like, they seal the holds, or, you know, they play defensively in the lore, or they fight the war defensively, but that's because they have no choice. Like, if the Dwarves can defeat an opponent in an open field battle in this lore, they will. There's many examples where they do so. There's many examples where they try and do so, fail, and then seal the holds. But you gotta understand, sealing the holds is a loss from a Dwarven perspective. However, on the flip side of that, the Dwarves do and constantly are fighting an underground war in the underway and under their own holds against Gavens, against greenskins, and so on and so forth. So you got to remember that particular aspect. So we do have this system with the deeps. You're going to need permission from the High King. Forgrim obviously is the High King, so he's always going to have permission, I guess. And Belgar already has permission to go reconquer Kayarkate Peaks. In fact, he was helped by Forgrim with respect to this, and Lorem. Maybe you should help him as well in the game, because I do think, like, I'd be interested to see if they could improve Belgar's camping, because I think that's one of the issues with the dwarves. It's like, it's not the lack of a deeps mechanic. It's like Belgar could genuinely use in better camping, as right now, yeah, he's powerful, but it doesn't really feel like a great campaign at the moment. That's just me. Anyway, so we can see the various features. What this really is, it's basically an undercity mechanic for dwarves, but one that they'll be able to apply under their own settlements. Maybe the Skaven should have such a similar mechanic, or be able to use the undercities under their own settlements, because right now undercities for Skaven kind of not worth it in a lot of ways. But anyway, you have various structures over here that you have to unlock. You also have blocked tunnels, which can only be demolished upon sufficiently upgrading the entrance hall building, or when technology construction guilds is unlocked. Okay, so it's going to take some time to be able to remove these and get slots. So it's not just going to be instant power, so it's going to take time. Now, what this gives you is, an example they use, is 5% settlement income per turn count, local region, and settlement income reduced by 5% per settlement owned over there. So the more settlements you own, the less income you're going to get from this, but you do get off gold, you do get a research rate, you do get an income benefit. So one of the problems is that the reason you want to go out there is because you gain more, the more settlements you gain, the more income you're gaining. So this structure, as an example, is a great way to kind of offset that. Not as powerful if you have a lot of territory, but obviously very powerful, you know, if you're just selling in, you get more and more and more and more income as you build up. That's great. Then you get to see all the hold mechanic, which makes you immune to siege attrition. Though I do wonder, how long would it take? Would it work with, like, armies surrendering in a siege, like settlements surrendering if they're besieged by that? How will that work? And how will the AI use this? So anyway, Seal the Hold makes armies immune to siege attrition, basically defenders. Defensive supplies increased, enemy hero action success chance reduced, ammunition 50% during siege battles, but at a cost of 100 growth, and diplomatic relations with all factions, and diplomatic relations with the dwarves. As I stated, dwarves do not want to seal their holds. That's the last thing. When you have 5 or fewer settlements, you get additional defensive supplies, extra ammunition, leadership when under siege, and an Ironbreaker garrison. Like, Ironbreakers fight in the underway, just worth pointing out in the lore. Like, their primary purpose is to fight underground, as opposed to what they do in the game. Then you have the Cast Cults feature rework, so they're really making Cast Cults far more useful, because, like, basically cults are a gimmick right now, so they're looking to make that a lot more interesting. You can now have an extra cult Magus, which is a new campaign-only version of the cultist agent, and can create special cult locations that have extra building slots and innate benefits. Like all other campaign-only agents, they'll disappear when using their agent action, so you can imagine, okay, I do wonder how you're gonna get this. Will you start with one, something like that, but you do have a large number of benefits with this. You have extra slots, so you have 2 slots, as they indicate over here, the Lost Palace. And there's various structures, so you can see over here that we got 5, we got 9 cult structures at the moment, and they're using Siege as this. This does feel like something that will benefit Kairos Fateweaver quite a lot and make his campaign interesting, because his campaign can feel very dull in a lot of ways. So having a lot of more flexibility, especially because you now get the ability of instantly transporting your faction leader to a particular settlement for every single cast faction. That's great. Basically only Scarbrand has it, or Khorne has it, but now all demon cast factions, I'm not sure about the Demon Prince, but everyone else, right? Khorne, Nurgle, Siege, Slaanesh will have this ability, which does add for a lot more variety in campaigns. Then you get intricate preparations, cost grimoires, but reduces the changing of waste cost by minus 80%, but increases discoverability by 200, which is quite a lot. So you would need structures to reduce that discoverability. You get a Ritual of Blood, which instantly replenishes all units faction-wide. Cultists destroy them on building completion. Slaanesh gets Settlement owner instantly gains 200 seductive influence upon completion. You get 5,000 income for the local region owner, and the cult destroyed the bond building completion. So it really pushes that playstyle that Slaanesh does well, which is really using diplomacy to gain a lot of power on the campaign map. It doesn't look like it will address some of the inherent issues Slaanesh has in their campaign, but it could make N'Kari a lot more interesting to play in other ways. Like, N'Kari has a lot of good campaign power. The issue is like lack of replenishment battles and the fact that the campaign feels very samey the same time you play every time you play it. Lack of variety over there is something that does hurt Slaanesh. Then we get unusual locations, new mini feature, and what this is going to do is make a lot of regions feel more unique. Like, they give the example of Bretonnian Holy Site, Grail Knight Grave, gives control, which is not really an issue for Bretonnia. Corruption in adjacent provinces as well reduced, but very important chance for characters in a region to gain a trait associated with a location, as well as garrison of Grail Reliquary and Grail Knights. Holy shit, Grail Knights garrison. Damn, that's pretty significant. And then there's like Grand Illuminator residence for the Empire, which gives you prestige. So this is obviously for Karl Franz and Altdorf. Gives you prestige per turn, specifically. 10% chance to increase the fealty of random electric counts. Damn, that's really good. But at cost of cast corruption, and if it gets too high, you get even more prestige, but at the same time, you're gaining plus 5 cast corruption. You're looking at 15 cast on the via corruptions, which is quite a lot. Like, inheriting corruption is not too big of an issue to deal with in a campaign, but if you got plus 15 cast corruption, that is going to be a bloody problem. And then various problems. I think this looks like a garrison building of some kind. Like a teleportation building over there. I have no idea what this is going to do. This looks like a plague building, but we just have to wait and see on that. Now, the final point they do bring up over here is that with future updates, they have a team that's gathering feedback from all platforms where you share it. It may not always be visible, but I can promise you it does reach us developers. And I'm not going to go into details, but yeah, CA does look on feedback on all kinds of things. For instance, there are YouTubers who are saying, oh, I know you guys watch my videos. Well, apparently they're watching a lot more than just some people's videos. They're not just watching videos from the biggest content creators. My concern with this is I don't think updates should just be determined by, you know, what some content creators are saying on their channels. Like, there's so many people, I'll use this example. There's so many people on forums, Discord, YouTube content creators that say, oh, sieges would be so much greater if we remove ladders. You know, I think it would do absolutely fucking nothing, personally. Like, it would not fix anything, right? From my perspective. The pocket ladder aspect, the discussion over there. There's a lot of problems with sieges. I've done many videos on that, but inherently, the problem with sieges is that the way the game is designed is that the most interesting battles are field battles because you have a lot more flexibility in deployment. And with sieges, you lose that inherently because of the settlement design. But on top of that, the problem is the way sieges play out is that you're literally going to fight the vast majority of sieges, or the key element of the battle is going to be on the walls. You're not fighting the settlement very rarely, and you don't want to do so. I think one of the things that would really help with sieges is if you want feedback, CA, this is feedback. I think Pharaoh did this. Not Dynasties. Inherently, Pharaoh did this much better, where you can fight the siege, right? But you can also avoid a lot of sieges because every time you build siege equipment, so you have an auto-resolve benefit to settlements in Pharaoh. But if you build siege equipment in wall settlement, you're going to increase your auto-resolve. So you can avoid a lot of the tedious, boring sieges where there's not really a defender to deal with and fight the interesting ones. Mind you, there's not that many interesting sieges in a campaign. But it is a really great mechanic from that perspective. Obviously, there's other things that CA could do. I'll make a video on the kind of changes I would like to see, or rather the kind of actions I would like to see improvements for. I am a bit surprised they chose the dwarves, but here's the thing. They did get a lot of criticism for Thrones of Decay for Age of Reckoning. I think that was a bit ridiculous. The dwarves are really awesome to play with their Age of Reckoning mechanic. But they did decide to address that. But I think like races like High Elves, Cafe, Kislev, and others do need improvements. Like, I would really like to see Kislev improved. And when I say improved, I'm talking about relatively minor changes that mods already do. Though I do wonder how CA developers feel about that. Like, because we know they follow mods. We know they follow what mods are doing, sometimes for the best, sometimes for the worst. Like, I'll mention this. Like, I don't think SFO is a good baseline for what CA should do. I'm quite serious. Oh, but it's very popular. No, it's exaggerated. Like, yes, there's a lot of people subscribe to it, all that, but being subscribed to a mod does not mean you're necessarily playing a lot of campaigns with that. It's like, you can be subscribed to a mod and never play with that mod. Like, I have a lot of mods I'm subscribed to. You think I play every campaign with that? No. There are many campaigns I play with very, very little mods. I think, like, the better camera mod is something that's universally liked, but one of the problems with community feedback is, like, you look at Reddit, right? The Total War Reddit, or you look at forums on it, there's, like, maybe a couple hundred people that, you know, follow the forums, follow Discord, and even then, it's like you may have a couple dozen individual posts by individual people every day. That is not a great sample size when you have like 12 or 20,000 concurrent players and you likely have hundreds of thousands of people playing the game every freaking day. Again, just not a great idea. But let's just compare how many people are online on Total War Reddit compared to how many people are online in the game. Like, there's maybe 1,000 at most in peak hours for the Total War Reddit. Again, there's 20,000, 30,000 people, dependent on the hour in an individual day. Depends also on the day, right? So obviously gathering that kind of feedback, I think they should just give us an option, really, like just to add feedback options. Like, when you're playing a race, hey, do you want to give feedback on this race? What kind of systems would you like to see? I think that would be a better way than just, you know, the developers constantly watching videos, Reddit, Discord, etc. That would be my perspective on that. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I'm really interested in seeing what else is in 5.2. I don't know how to feel about Deeps, but whether or not it's going to be a meaningless system or it's just going to be a gimmick, we'll see. Improvements to Caravans, very welcome. Improvement to cults, very, very welcome. Unusual locations, making individual regions more unique, which is certainly something that can be a problem, because, like, you know, every region ends up feeling very samey in a lot of campaigns. Sure, we have landmarks, but this is going to add a lot more variety to that. So I'm really interested in seeing how that plays out. Cosine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.